All sports, all plays. Yeah. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, they working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.
All right. Welcome to Around the Bases. Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022. Phillies jump out on the Astros last night and got a good pitching performance from Suarez as well and get the 7-0 shutout, but 5 home runs. They scored 7 straight runs with that without ever having a runner in scoring position. You don't see that too often. But joined by stat guy Dustin Reese today. How's it going?
Going very well today, Chris. Last night was, I think, a bit of a surprise, but if we can recap our show from the other day, I believe I said the advantage was for the Phillies last night just because it allowed Ranger Suarez to kind of come back on normal rest as opposed to going with somebody else. And yes, having 5 home runs helped, but it definitely looked like Ranger Suarez was on last night.
Yeah, well, 5 innings, only gave up a couple hits, no runs. Yeah, he pitched well. Yeah, we both thought that the rain delay or the postponement helped the Phillies. And,
yeah.
Are you surprised that with the Phillies starting Nola that?
No, because
the Astros
that rain out allowed Aaron Nola to come back on normal rest. And you don't have to start him early. You don't have to start him late. And now the Phillies have the advantage. I know Houston has Justin Verlander lined up. I know they have Framber Valdez lined up if they need them. But now the Phillies have the advantage where they can go with their 2 horses in Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler with the potential to close the series out at home. I'm not saying they're going to, but if Aaron Nola can pitch the Phillies to a victory tonight, you're setting up a win or go home basically for Houston on Thursday with Zach Wheeler taking the ball on Thursday. So right now the Phillies are in the driver's seat, and if Aaron Nola can avoid his disastrous first start that he had in the World Series, granted Philadelphia did come back and win that game. If Aaron Nola can go out and set the tone tonight, I'm not liking Houston's chances to win the World Series, even though I did pick them to win in 6, which means they would have to win the next 3 to do that. I'm not liking their chances too much if Aaron Nola can go out and set the tone because I don't see Houston being able to beat Philly 3 straight.
No, I don't either. If Nola, and you're right, if Nola can pitch like he had the rest of the playoffs instead of just that one game, Phillies are going to, I think, have a good chance tonight. Are you surprised that the Astros didn't come back with Verlander instead of Javier for this game?
I am a little bit surprised that they did not come back with Verlander tonight. But I think they're confident in their bullpen, and I think they're confident in themselves that they can at least even things up. And then at that point, it kind of becomes a chess match as to what matchups are going to work and what matchups aren't going to work. And I wish Jay McLovin was here because I remember on the afternoon show on Monday, last Monday even, what was my biggest criticism about Dusty Baker? My biggest criticism about him was not being able to manage in the World Series, and that definitely showed last night with Lance McCullers. He left him out there way too long. He trusted him way too long, which I give Dusty Baker credit because he puts a lot of faith in his pitchers. But you could see that Lance McCullers was getting hit hard. There was no reason for him to stay out there as long as he stayed out there. And if Houston does lose the World Series, you can point to Game 3 and be like, why did Dusty Baker leave McCullers out there as long as he did when you have a bullpen that's pretty much shut everybody down in the postseason?
Yeah, McCullers didn't have it last night, and then Suarez was in the zone. They took Suarez out after the 5th inning, which he had started facing the lineup for the 3rd time, so it didn't surprise me that they took him out. But I did like the move of Thompson not pulling Suarez early after they got a couple runners on base, and the TV commentators were kind of second guessing him that he left Suarez out there, but he had pitched good the whole game and been in the zone. I thought it was a good move to leave him out there for one more batter.
Yeah, and that goes to show you what a big lead can do. Because had that been a closer game, I don't think Suarez goes as long as he goes. Even though he only did go 5 innings, so it's not like he went deep into the game anyways, but I don't think he goes through 4 innings if that game was closer. But because Philly had such a big lead, it allowed them to kind of do things a little bit differently because they were able to maybe give up a couple runs and still be in good position, and they ended up shutting them out.
And another thing I think it helps Philly is they didn't have to use their main bullpen pitchers last night either, so that even got their bullpen some more rest.
Exactly.
Where they're not as deep in their bullpen as the Astros are. So I think that even favors the Phillies with being able to get that 7-0 lead like that. That you didn't have to pitch your main closer or your main reliever late in that game last night.
Yep.
I'm ready for tonight's game. See what happens. But Philly's going to be rocking again. They were going. That crowd was wild last night.
I mean, that's what happens when you're at the playoffs for 11 years. You have all that built up energy cooped up inside, and when you finally get to the playoffs, you gotta release it somehow.
How much of the McCullers' problems last night do you think that he was tipping his pitches? I've been seeing a lot of stuff about that this morning. That he was tipping his pitches. He said that he didn't feel like he was, that it was just they beat him. Do you think that might have played a role in it?
I mean, it's just like stealing signs. If you're stealing signs, if you know what's coming, It's a lot easier to hit. So if he was tipping his pitches last night, whether it was something with his leg kick or just something that he does with his glove before he releases a certain pitch, if the Phillies caught on to that, credit them for that. But if the Phillies caught on to it, well, obviously it's a lot easier to hit if you know what's coming. Okay. And I remember, I think it was last summer, not this past summer, but summer of 2021, during the American Legion State baseball tournament that I was covering. The team that I was covering had a pitcher that allowed 3 runs in 97 innings all summer. He goes out and he gives up 8 runs in the state championship game because he was tipping his pitches. And the other team figured out exactly what he does before he threw a fastball and basically what he did before he threw his off-speed stuff, and they were just sitting on his fastball all game. So if you can pick out even the most subtle thing, if you can pick that out and diagnose it from maybe his secondary stuff, or if you're sitting on a curveball because he does something different with his glove when he throws a curveball, you can pretty much just sit on that pitch, and once you know it's coming, put a good swing on it. That's typically the results you're going to have.
Oh yeah, it's a big advantage if you know if it's going to be a breaking ball or a fastball coming at you.
Exactly.
Real big advantage. I didn't notice him tipping like watching it live, but I don't but also as a fan, you're not studying the pitcher.
Oh, if you paid close enough, you noticed it. If you paid close enough attention, because when
I started seeing some of the highlights, I was like, okay, I see it, but I'll be honest, I wasn't paying real close attention to the pitcher.
Because every time he would go off speed, he would pat his gloves twice, and every time he would go fastball, he would pat his glove once.
Well, you could even tell sometimes with his wind up as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's. But let's talk a little bit about baseball in Vegas. You'd messaged me about that this morning. I was already knocked out.
Yeah, baseball is officially coming to Las Vegas. It's not a matter of if anymore. It's a matter of when. Rob Manfred was speaking, I think, during the rain delay or during the postponement on Monday about the situation in Oakland and the situation with their stadium, and basically saying that Oakland needs a new stadium just because of the facility and everything else that goes with it. And he came flat out and said that a new stadium in Oakland is not going to happen. And basically said because of that, they are going to move to Las Vegas. He just didn't really get into detail as to when that was going to happen. And I know a lot of people were speculating that Major League Baseball was going to expand to 32 teams, and a lot of people felt that Montreal was going to get a team and Vegas was going to get a team anyways. Well, if Oakland is going to be moving to Vegas, that kind of takes that out of the expansion talks. But now it looks like Tampa Bay is going to be staying put in Tampa Bay also, because they've now put plans forth for a brand new stadium in Tampa Bay, located more on the ocean side, kind of where the Buccaneer Stadium is.
Okay. So with them teams staying put, do you think there might still be an expansion to add, or not them? Well, with Tampa staying put and then Oakland going to Vegas, do you think there still might be an expansion to add teams?
There's going to be an expansion because Montreal is going to get a team. And if you expand to Montreal, you have to expand basically 2 teams, because you're adding a team in the East, because Montreal would go out East. So you would most likely have to bring a team out West. I think Portland is a logical destination, just because Portland has a very nice baseball facility up there already, where they could just add a second tier and then it becomes, I believe, a major league standard stadium at that point. Or if they really want to get creative, Louisville and Charlotte are also generating a ton of ground to get an expansion team. Especially Charlotte, knowing that Charlotte's one of the more bigger markets in the Southeast. And they have a football team, they have a basketball team, they have a hockey team, they have a soccer team. The only major sport they're lacking is baseball. If they brought in Montreal and if they brought in Charlotte, then you can take a team from the East and move them into the West to make it a 16-16, much like what they did with Houston. When Houston was in the NL, they moved them over to the AL. So if you bring both those teams over, you could do 16-16. So essentially, it doesn't really matter where those teams go. But if the A's go to Vegas, I see Montreal and I think Charlotte will get the expansion teams at that point.
I wish Indianapolis would get the expansion team. I'd love to have a major league team here in Indiana, but we have
and Victory Field is a very nice stadium. Like, it is close to being major league standard. If I remember correctly, in order to have a major league standard field, you need it to be, I believe, 25 or 26,000 is like the minimum that you can have. So it's not like a huge stadium, but Victory Field is at like 15,000 people right now, where if you added a second level, or if you added seats in the outfield, because obviously minor league baseball, you don't have the seats in the outfield, so you lose people that way. If you added seats to the outfield and if you added that second tier all the way around, you're looking at a 28 to 30 person stadium at that, or 28 to 30,000 person stadium at that point, and then it becomes a major league, basically standard stadium at that point where they could have a team.
It's not, and like you said, it's a real nice diamond. And it's in a good location there, right there in downtown Indianapolis as well. Basically, right across from Lucas Oil Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, Anthony Price asked, if Oakland moves to Vegas, what's their new name going to be?
I think if they move to Vegas, I could see them keeping the A's name just at first, just to get the move there. But once they kind of get into their new stadium, once they kind of establish themselves, I could see them being called the Vegas Gamblers, the Vegas Aces, kind of something casino based, just because their stadium's going to be on the Strip anyways. They're going to be in that casino environment. You got to kind of give them a name to stand out. But I think they stay the Athletics right when that move happens, and then eventually they'll probably switch over and change to complete branding and everything like that.
And I think the move to Vegas could be great for baseball if they market it right.
Well, Vegas is in that similar position to Charlotte, where Charlotte has 4 of the 5 major sports covered, with baseball the only one they don't have. And you look at Vegas, Vegas has the Golden Knights. Vegas has they're going to be awarded the 30th Major League Soccer franchise next year, so that's going to give them 2 there. Vegas has the Raiders. Adam Silver said that the NBA is going to be expanding to 32 teams, and Vegas is going to get one of the 2 expansion teams there, which basically means the only major sport they're missing at that point is baseball.
Yep.
And you throw baseball in there, then Vegas and Charlotte are kind of in that same boat where they're going to be one of those cities that has a professional team in all the 5 major sports.
Yeah, and and they have a excuse me, the WNBA team as well.
Mm-hmm.
They're in Vegas already. So but I think if Major League Baseball markets it right, it could be a big move for them getting a team there. But them marketing, depending on Major League Baseball to market something isn't their strong point. They haven't done a great job of marketing baseball.
See, that is the biggest disappointment that I have with baseball, basically with everything, because baseball is supposed to be America's pastime. It's supposed to be America's game. And yet they have all these blackouts that prevent fans from watching games if you're out of the market or if you're in the market, vice versa. You have all these teams that want their own streaming service specifically for their games, which means if you don't have that streaming service, you're not going to be able to watch the games anyways. They're basically alienating the fans at this point because they're giving fans less and less opportunities to watch these games because they're taking it off of standard TV and they're making fans pay for a service that they're only going to use a couple months out of the year. And the more they do that and the more blackout dates they have, the more viewership they're going to lose. And that's not good for Major League Baseball because they don't do a good job marketing their product. They should be marketing Ohtani and Mike Trout and Bryce Harper and a lot of the stars of the game now, and they just don't do that. Instead, they just push viewership away because of the choices they make when it comes to the television side of things.
Yeah, I was looking for a Reds game one day, and I had no idea that baseball was on Apple TV.
Yep, look at right now. You have YouTube.
I had no idea. I'm looking for the game. Like, where's the game at? And then it says Apple TV. Like, when the hell did baseball start being on Apple TV?
You have YouTube
marketing it.
You have YouTube TV on Wednesday afternoons. They usually do a baseball game, and they've done a pretty good job marketing the YouTube TV thing because actually I have YouTube TV anyways, but that's, I think, one of the faster growing cable services right now. So they've done a great job doing that. Baseball also had those Facebook Live games during the day where they would just pick kind of a random game on like a Thursday and like broadcast it on Facebook on the MLB page. And obviously, if you have a Facebook account, that becomes free at that point. But the whole Friday night Apple TV thing I thought was stupid because in the middle of summer, you're the only sport that's going on. So if you're going to put a game on prime time on a Friday, why not put it on FS1? Why not put it on ABC or one of these major channels where everybody can watch it? You put it on Apple TV, you're forcing people to buy an Apple account, which they may not want to use anyways. They may literally be getting it for 4 months out of the year to watch baseball because they're forced to. And at that point, you're only watching it one day a week anyways because it's only on Fridays.
And some people might only watch it if it's their team playing.
Yeah. Like I've never understood the way baseball goes about their whole broadcasting side of thing. Like I don't understand why they want all these streaming services. I don't understand why they want to have blackout dates. I don't get why they want to take all these games off of TV that a normal casual fan would watch. Like obviously if you're a diehard fan, you're going to purchase all these add-on packages to watch your team. But just like a normal casual baseball fan that likes to watch baseball, they can't anymore because they have no way to do it.
Yeah. I'm lucky where I get most of Reds games, but without having to pay really extra. But I know how it is because I remember before they Bally Sports started, where I was able to get Bally Sports Ohio, to watch a lot of Reds games, I'd have to get a streaming package or something like that because they you're right, they'd be blacked out.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't live. Hell, I'm only hour and 40 minutes, hour and 2 hours from Cincinnati.
Yeah, and the other part about that too is a blackout date is only baseball can basically decide what games they want to black out. It's not something that it's not something the organization even has a say on. And that's the worst part about it. Like if you're going to have all these blackout dates that you want to inflict on baseball, at least let the team decide which games they want to black out. Like they don't even have a say on it. It's just like, oh, we're in a blackout game. Can't do anything about it. Sorry, guys. You can't watch us this week.
Yeah, that's crazy. What do you think about the White Sox going to hire Griffel as their manager?
I really don't have much of a comment on it because I'm not too familiar with who he is anyways, outside that he was the Royals bench coach.
Yeah.
But he's coming from the Kansas City Royals, who, I'm sorry, they really did not have that great of a year this year. So I don't understand how much of a difference he's going to make. I personally thought they should have brought back Ozzie Guillen, or at least somebody that has had managerial experience in the past, just because that team needs a veteran presence like Tony La Russa, but they need a guy that is got the veteran presence mixed with the new age attitude. So they need somebody that has been a manager before, but has also kind of managed the way that baseball's played today. And now they have a first time manager who's never managed before coming in, and he's going to have so much pressure on him to get this team to succeed right away when they were arguably the most disappointing team in baseball last year. There was a lot of people that had them not only winning the AL Central, but there was a lot of people that had them competing for a World Series title this year. Granted, the injuries and things played a huge role as to why they really never got consistently hot. But even at that point, they had one of the lowest batting They had one of the lowest batting averages in baseball. They had one of the lowest runs per game in baseball. They just never were able to click offensively, and that's what that team spent all that money on over the last couple of years, was building that offense up.
Yeah. Yeah, they did have a real disappointing season. Nolan Arenado became the fourth infielder to win 10 consecutive gold gloves. He also tied Suzuki for the longest by a player to start a career. Did it surprise you that he got another gold glove? I didn't. I mean, it didn't really surprise me that he got another one. But to get 10 straight to start your career out, that's pretty impressive.
That's very impressive. And I mean, you could say that apart from Scott Rowland, Nolan Arenado might be the greatest fielding third baseman in history, because Scott Rowland, I think, had like 7 or 8 gold gloves, and he had a nice string of like 4 or 5 in a row to begin his career. But when you look at the third base landscape, outside of Nolan Arenado, who's even close to competing with him, maybe the guy from Colorado that is it Ryan McMahon that plays third base in Colorado? I think he's the only one that came close to beating Arenado in the Gold Glove standings, just because he had such a good year defensively last year. But that's the thing, Nolan Arenado does it every single year. He's been consistently good at fielding for 10 years, and you look at the rest of the third base landscape in the National League especially, you're going to have players that have a good defensive year, but they're not going to do that consistently. So it essentially becomes the Nolan Arenado award at this point until he decides that he doesn't want it.
There's only been 3 other people to put together a longer streak, and that was a Hall of Famer Brooks Robinson at third base, 16 straight Golden Gloves. Ozzie Smith had 13 straight at shortstop, and Keith Hernandez had 11 straight at first base. So yeah, I mean, just a few more years, he could have the most straight.
Yeah, if you look at the rest of the Gold Glove Award winners, there was a record 14 first-time winners this year. So that goes to show you kind of how much the game has changed, and just a lot of the people now are not people that we're accustomed to. Like JT Realmuto, yes, we know who he is, but I don't consider him a great catcher. I mean, I guess he might be the best catcher out there, but does that really tell you how good the catcher market is, or does that kind of show you that the catching market is so bad that Realmuto is just the best defensive one out there? First base Gold Glove was Christian Walker from Arizona. I mean, did anybody expect him to get a Gold Glove this year over a guy like Paul Goldschmidt or anybody else? Probably not, and he's a first-time winner. Brendan Rodgers of the Rockies. He's a first-time winner. You got Dansby Swanson at shortstop who got the Gold Glove. Obviously, Arenado, who we just talked about. Ian Happ for the Cubs got a Gold Glove in left field, and he deserved it because he had an amazing year this year in the outfield. Trent Grisham, center fielder, got a Gold Glove, and then Mookie Betts got a Gold Glove. So really, outside of Mookie Betts and Nolan Arenado, everybody else on that list was a first-time Gold Glover this year. And that just kind of goes to show you, like, a lot of the players now that are good defensive players are just kind of coming into their own versus a guy like Arenado, been there, done that. Guy like Mookie Betts, been there, done that, who are going to be those annual award winners that are just there every single year.
Having so many first-time winners, does that kind of show where maybe the defensive wise in Major League Baseball isn't as strong?
Yes and no. I mean, it can to a point show that, but it also goes to show you how much better players are in the field nowadays.
Yeah, talented. How much more
talented they are, how much more athletic they are. Because if you look at a lot of the Gold Glove winners this year in the National League, I'll talk about the National League. Everybody in the National League that won a Gold Glove this year is at least 27 years old. So they've been in the league a lot longer than most players have anyways, and they have that experience. But then you go over to the American League, most of those Gold Glove winners in the American League were under 25 years old.
Yeah, young guys.
And that just goes to show you just kind of how athletic and how good some of these players have become and how quickly they've gotten that good. And that is very good for the future of Major League Baseball. Now it's just a matter of figuring out how to actually market their product properly so fans can actually see some of these young players on display on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be their big key because you're right. We're getting a lot of young talent in baseball now that coming in more talent with more skills than what we used to. But a lot of people don't know who they are because you don't get to see them. And I mean, look, even with Mike Trout, look how many people that wouldn't have an idea who Mike Trout was if he's walking down the street, but he's been considered the best baseball player for how many years?
I mean, yeah, and that's the thing with Mike Trout too, and everyone now has the debate as to like who's the face of Major League Baseball. Is it Shohei? Is it Aaron Judge? Is it this person or this person? And I continue to say the face of Major League Baseball is Mike Trout, regardless of the injuries. If this man was healthy and was playing a full 162 games every single season, he would be a 40-40 player every single year that hits over 300. He would be a first ballot Hall of Famer if he was able to stay healthy.
Oh, no, I agree.
And he still might be a first ballot Hall of Famer when his career is over because the numbers he's put up in his first 10 years are Hall of Fame worthy numbers.
Yeah. I just wish injuries hasn't slowed him down some because it'd be great to see the number why his numbers would look like.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer unless these injuries really start piling up where he don't get to come back and play for another 4 or 5 years. But I think if he gets to keep playing, that he's definitely. I think he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
See, White Sox hiring. Any other baseball things you want to talk about?
Not really. We're kind of getting to that slow part of baseball right now up until the hot stove season and free agency starts. And that's what I'm looking forward to the most this year. I think that has the potential to be kind of what the NFL trade deadline was yesterday, especially when you look at the shortstop market and you have guys like Carlos Correa, Trey Turner, Xander Bogaerts, Dansby Swanson, just as those 4 guys, all free agents at the same time, all that play the same position. That's going to be the hottest market of all of them right off the bat. And once those pieces start to fall as to where those players are going, everything else is going to come after that. I think we have a very slow start to free agency again, like we've had the last couple of years, but I don't think it's going to be like it was during COVID, where I think everyone was they didn't want to spend any money at all, just because they didn't know if you were going to have a baseball season due to COVID or whatnot. Yeah. I don't think people are going to be afraid to spend money at this point. I think it's going to be more of you have Correa, Turner, Bogarts, and Swanson as like the big four, they're going to get so many offers across the board from so many teams that I think it's going to take them a while to decide on what they want. But once that first player accepts whatever offer it is, that's going to set the bar of what the shortstop market's going to be. And then everything else will trickle behind it, whether it's starting pitching, whether it's first base, whether it's second base. I just think that first decision by that shortstop market is going to kind of set the bar for free agency, as opposed to this is what the threshold is. This person gets 350. That's what the mark's going to be. So Aaron Judge, you're going to be at 350 or lower. I mean, this is what the mark is going to be.
Yeah, and I think it'll pick up like you said, because look at the NFL trade deadlines, one of the busiest ones we've seen in a while for the NFL, and I think Major League Baseball could be the same once it gets started.
Yeah.
What's your prediction for tonight's game? Do the Phillies go up 3-1, or you think the Astros are going to even it up?
I think Phillies go up 3-1.
That's what
I do like Nola over Christian Javier. I think Nola's a better pitcher. I think he's more proven. As long as Philadelphia can stay away from a lot of the big dogs of the Astros pen, they'll be fine. And even if they get to the back end of Houston's pen, as long as they have the lead, they'll be fine. Just because David Robertson and the rest of the Phillies bullpen is very well rested because they didn't have to throw hardly that much last night. Their good bullpen arms were saved. So I like Philadelphia to win. I think it's going to be a close game. But I think Philly does go up 3-1, which basically sets up a Justin Verlander versus Zach Wheeler matchup to extend Houston's season or to hand Philadelphia the title.
Yeah, I like Philadelphia tonight as well. For the same reason you said, bullpen's rested. I think Nola's going to pitch a lot better this game than he did in game one. I don't see him pitching 2 bad games in a row like that.
And their bats are just unbelievably hot.
Yeah. Bats are hot. I mean, a record 5 home runs in the World Series, but not even that. Just score 7 runs without ever having a runner in scoring position. That's just crazy.
Yeah, and it's like you've seen this before in baseball where like when a team is like hitting the ball very well, it might be 1 or 2 guys in that lineup that's carrying the team. All 9 guys in their lineup are hitting the baseball at the same time. Yeah. They don't have like one guy that you can point to and be like, oh, he's an easy out. They don't have an easy out right now because everybody's smoking the baseball.
Yep. And then you got Bryce Harper, who's just having a great playoffs as well on top of that. And then he crushed the ball. Schwarber crushed the ball. And then it was a Bohm that was right behind Schwarber to hit the back-to-back.
Yep.
Yeah, it was. I was loving it. Then of course Frankie had me cracking up because he was trying to get Jay going, but Jay wouldn't go to answer the messages in the chat group. Jay, I knew Jay wasn't going to want to talk about it last night. Well, told me because he always told all Astros they have pitching for days. That hey, you can have the best pitchers, but bats get hot like Phillies are. It don't matter.
Yeah,
like I agree with you. Dusty left McCullers out there way too long. You can't let the guy give up that many runs. You got to try to put a stop to the bleeding and get some momentum for your team.
Especially in the World Series, knowing that like the winner of Game 3, I think typically wins the World Series 75 or 80% of the time.
Yeah,
like Game 3 is the big swing game, and if it's a 1-1 tie, you can't afford to let your pitcher go out there and just get smoked around like it's batting practice. Like you need to keep your team in the game, and Dusty Baker for all the good that he has done this year, and for all the good that he has brought to Houston since he's gotten to Houston. He continues to make some terrible managerial decisions when the season's on the line, and leaving McCullers in as long as he did is just another one of his head-scratching decisions that he typically makes in the playoffs.
No, I agree. You can't you have to stop the bleeding and try to get momentum, and he never did. And by the time he did pull him, it was too late then. I mean, they were up 7-0, and even the relievers that they pitched that hadn't got a whole lot of work in the playoffs came in and was able to shut down the Astros last night.
Yeah.
That's what surprised me a little more than anything. I thought the Astros would put up maybe a couple runs once they got to that bullpen, since they're pitching some of the guys that haven't got a whole lot of action. But them guys was able to shut them down. But all right, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Nope. I believe if Philadelphia wins tonight, I think they're in a situation where they really have nothing to worry about. I mean, obviously they still have to worry, but they could essentially have Nola ready for Game 7 if they end up going to Game 7. And then they would have Wheeler lined up in Game 5 anyway. So right now, Philadelphia's got to like the position they're in. And I just find it amazing how this is the team that everyone expected the Phillies to be. And all it took was getting rid of Joe Girardi for them to get to be this team.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder, over the past 3 years when Girardi was there, where would this team be this year had they not brought Girardi in to begin with and went with somebody else?
Yeah. And I think this Thompson's doing real good, has made some real good decisions for his first time head coach in a World Series.
Yeah.
All right. Please hit that subscribe button on YouTube at Gonzo Sports Room and at the All Sports All Plays Network. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern. We'll talk tonight's World Series game. I like the Phillies. We both like the Phillies to win tonight. I think it's a must. I think it's a must win for Houston, because if you go down 3-1, I don't see the Astros beating the Phillies 3 games in a row. I really don't. So I think to me, this is a must win for Houston. But like and follow us on Facebook as well, Facebook and Twitch as well, at both networks. And we'll see you guys tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern with another episode of Around the Bases. Thanks for joining us, and everybody have a good day.
All sports, all plays. Yeah. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. We talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.